Section 1: The Quiet Return. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when I returned home earlier than usual. The sky was overcast and the air smelled of rain. I had gone to the local market for some fresh vegetables and tea leaves, nothing extraordinary. My mind was occupied with trivial thoughts like which flowers to plant in the front yard next week. Life had been slow and peaceful since I retired from my job at the library 2 years ago. My daughter Emma and her husband David had moved into the house a few months back, saying it would be easier for them to save money for a place of their own. I didn't mind. I loved having my daughter close again. Emma had always been my only child, the joy of my later years. Her laughter filled the house, and even after she got married, she would call every day. When she asked if she and David could stay just for a little while, I didn't hesitate to say yes. I had an extra room, and the house had felt too empty since my husband passed away 5 years ago. But that afternoon, something felt off the moment I stepped through the door. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was thick, uncomfortable. I placed my groceries on the kitchen counter and listened. There were faint sounds upstairs, footsteps, a drawer closing softly, the squeak of hinges. I frowned. Emma had told me she'd be working a double shift at the clinic today. That meant only David was home. He worked from home some days, claiming his marketing company allowed flexible hours, but the sounds coming from my room made my stomach twist. Quietly, I climbed the stairs. My heart began to race as I approached my bedroom door, slightly ajar. I pushed it open gently, and what I saw froze me in place. David was standing beside my dresser, his back to me. My jewelry box, the small mahogany one my late husband had given me on our 20th anniversary, was open on the bed. He was going through it, holding one of my gold necklaces, the one with the small diamond pendant. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My voice came out hoarse, trembling with shock. "David, what are you doing?" He jumped as if struck, dropping the necklace. It clattered onto the floor. His face went pale, eyes wide like a child caught stealing cookies. "Oh, Mom, this isn't what it looks like." "Mom, he only called me that when he wanted something." I stepped into the room, crossing my arms. "Then what is it, David? Why are you going through my things?" He stammered, rubbing the back of his neck. I was just looking for a receipt. Emma said you might have kept the receipt for the bracelet we got you last Christmas, and..." I cut him off sharply. "That bracelet was bought online. There was no receipt in this box. Try again." His lips parted, searching for words, but none came. My chest tightened. The man I'd welcomed into my home, trusted with my daughter's happiness, had been rummaging through my personal belongings. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Leave my room, David." He nodded quickly, mumbling something that might have been an apology, and hurried out, avoiding eye contact. I sank onto the bed, staring at my open jewelry box. Everything looked slightly disturbed, the rows of rings, the bracelets, the earrings. I noticed something missing right away, a small velvet pouch that used to contain my late husband's cufflinks. My pulse quickened. Those cufflinks weren't valuable in money, but priceless in memory. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my head, David's startled face, the guilt in his eyes, the missing cufflinks. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became this wasn't the first time. Something darker was going on. Section 2: The Seeds of Doubt. The next morning, I acted as though nothing had happened. David avoided me, keeping to himself in the study, while Emma came home cheerful as ever. She was exhausted from her shift, complaining about her rude supervisor. I wanted to tell her everything, but I stopped myself. How could I accuse her husband without proof? She loved him, and despite my growing unease, I didn't want to destroy her marriage over a hunch. Still, the missing cufflinks haunted me. I checked online for pawnshops nearby and decided to visit a few discreetly. By the third shop, I found them, my husband's cufflinks, unmistakable, with his initials engraved on the back. The owner said a man matching David's description had sold them 3 days ago. I left the shop trembling, clutching the police receipt the owner had given me. I felt sick. When I got home, I sat in the kitchen, staring blankly at my tea. How could David do this? We had treated him like family, even helped them financially when they were short on rent last year. That evening, when Emma got home, I tried to bring up the subject gently. "Sweetheart," I began, "has David been having money problems lately?" She blinked in confusion. "Money problems? No, I don't think so. Why?" Just curious, I said, hiding my shaking hands under the table. He seems a little distracted. Emma shrugged. Yeah, he's been stressed about work, but that's normal. Why? Did he say something weird? I hesitated, then decided against telling her not yet. She looked too tired, too trusting. I didn't want to shatter that. But over the next few weeks, small things began to go missing: an old gold ring, a pearl brooch, even a few bills from my purse. Every time, David had an excuse ready and Emma seemed oblivious. The house no longer felt like home. It felt like a trap, one where I couldn't speak the truth without tearing my daughter's life apart. Section 3, The Confrontation. It all came to a head one night in December. Emma was at work and David was watching TV in the living room. I walked in quietly and stood before him, holding the pawnshop receipt. He glanced up, startled. What's this? I met his eyes. Proof, you sold my husband's cufflinks. He froze, color draining from his face, then his expression hardened. You went snooping through pawnshops. You're unbelievable. I'm unbelievable, I snapped. You're the one stealing from me. He stood abruptly. You don't understand. I needed the money. For what? I demanded. You and Emma don't pay rent, you don't buy groceries. What could you possibly need money for? He hesitated, then blurted, debt. Okay, I have debts. Before Emma and I got married, I took a loan. I thought I could handle it, but it's been eating me alive. I just needed to cover a few payments. I was going to put everything back. I felt my stomach twist in disbelief. You stole from your wife's mother from this house to pay off gambling debts. His silence was answer enough. I pointed toward the door. Get out. He stared at me, then sneered. You wouldn't dare tell Emma. You think she'd believe you over me. That cut deep for a moment. I faltered, but then I saw the arrogance in his eyes, the lack of remorse. I realized he wasn't sorry at all. Try me, I said coldly. I'll tell her tonight. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Section 4, My Daughter's Choice. When Emma came home later that night, she found me sitting in the kitchen, tears streaming down my face. Mom, what happened? She gasped. I told her everything: the missing jewelry, the pawn shop, the debts, the confrontation. She listened silently, her face pale. When I finished, she whispered, no, he wouldn't. Emma, I said softly, I wish that were true, but I have proof. I handed her the receipt, my voice trembling. She stared at it for a long time, then slowly covered her mouth with her hand. Tears welled in her eyes. Oh my God. That night, she confronted David. Their shouting filled the house, raw and heartbreaking. He denied it at first, then admitted it halfway through, claiming again that he'd meant to replace everything. Emma kicked him out. I wanted to comfort her, but she locked herself in her room for hours, crying. The next morning, she left for work early and didn't speak much for days. I tried to be there for her, but I could feel her heartbreak, the disillusionment of realizing the man you loved wasn't who you thought he was. Section 5, A New Beginning. Months passed. Emma filed for divorce quietly. David tried calling her, even came to the house once begging forgiveness, but she stood her ground. It took time to heal, to forgive ourselves for not seeing the signs earlier. One afternoon, as we sat together in the garden, Emma turned to me and said, Mom, thank you for protecting me. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I took her hand and smiled faintly. You're my daughter, I'd go through anything for you. The jewelry box still sits on my dresser, now locked, though not because of fear. It's a reminder. Not of what was lost, but of what was saved, our trust, our bond, and the lesson that love doesn't mean blindness. Sometimes the greatest betrayal comes from those closest to us, but sometimes facing that truth is what brings a family closer again. And as the afternoon light spilled into the garden, I realized something profound. Peace doesn't come from what we keep locked away, but from what we have the courage to let go.